Welcome to AI Force. I'm your host, Mark Good, and a special thanks to everyone who has already signed up for the upcoming Agent Force Bootcamp. I can't wait to see you all there. We're going to continue our discussion on MCP servers today, and specifically talking a little bit about the new security implications that you have to keep in mind if you're looking at connecting your agents to MCPs. Now, you can't get away from using MCPs if you're building agents. So if you're building agents, this is coming, if not already, in your pipeline. What I'm just showing here is I have Claude Desktop open. For anyone who's using Claude Desktop or Claude Pro, you can connect your agent to an MCP server. And what I have going here is a connection to Atlassian. And that brings up our first key consideration for MCP servers. And by the way, if you missed the last video on MCP servers with the introduction to what they are, how they're working, and talking way more in depth about the security implications and what you can do, head to the last video, which is linked below. But for today, I want to talk specifically about this blurb that I came across with OpenAI's MCP documentation. This in front of you is Claude, and what I've done is I've connected my Claude Desktop to an MCP server to integrate with Jira. So that comes from Atlassian, and the MCP server in this case is actually from Atlassian themselves. It's not common today to find MCP servers available for all of the big SaaS companies, but Atlassian is one of those who has put together an MCP server for you. And in this example, just quickly through it, I threw in a screenshot of tasks that I have listed in Google Tasks, gave it some of the context for my Atlassian Jira org, and had it create those tasks over inside of Jira. It's really nice. Having an agent to be able to interact as the UI with your database is fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about what I've found over from OpenAI. There is a connecting to trusted servers blurb buried deep within their MCP services information. And OpenAI recommends that you do not connect to a custom MCP server unless you know and trust the underlying application. So I just introduced this concept with Atlassian. I'm using the MCP server available from Atlassian. However, even before Atlassian came up with their server, there were homegrown MCP services available, third-party servers available on the internet that I could have used to make that connection. So OpenAI is advising, rightfully so, against just randomly grabbing any MCP server and connecting your agent to it. There are a lot of risks there, and like I mentioned, the last video has those. Atlassian, I didn't use any homegrown servers that I didn't vet prior to this one. If you go to the Atlassian support website, they've got a section on remote MCP servers, and they walk you through how you spin up a server, how you connect the Atlassian server to your agent, to Claude, in my case, Claude Desktop. And what's really nice is you can even do this locally on your local machine. So that's what I did. I've used the trusted actual platform server. But before I came across this from Atlassian, I was looking for how can I connect my Claude to Google Tasks. Like I mentioned, that's where I'm operating with my tasks, and I'd love my agent to be able to reach into Google Tasks and take some action. Now, I came across one of the first things I came across is this Google Workspace MCP. I also came across a couple of smaller projects specifically for tasks, but this Google Workspace MCP seems to be very robust and has a lot of capability with the entire Google Workspace, not just inside Google Tasks. So I was looking this one through, and there's a lot of detail here. I went over to the GitHub and started reviewing the information. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of code here, and this is a repo produced by a third party, not by Google themselves. Google doesn't have a Google Task or a Google Workspace official MCP yet, and that's going to be the case with a lot of companies that you deal with personally or through your work. And so these third-party services, you're going to come across these, and they will be very enticing. You will want to spin these up right away and connect to them. But the caution still exists that you do have to really consider before you connect to a third-party MCP. The example they gave here is with Stripe. Stripe does host a specific MCP, and it's available from Stripe, but there are third-party Stripe connectors as well. Because there aren't very many MCP servers out today, you're definitely going to be tempted to use one. But if it's not hosted by the organization that provides it, then be very skeptical before you connect. Remember, you're sending, and depending on the platform you're using, it could be very important information through the MCP server. And if anybody has spun up a server for you to use for free, and that server takes your login credentials in some way, or in some way injects prompts into your information, it could totally mess you up, and your data could be leaked through the MCP server, if not your credentials. And so this is the risk that OpenAI is trying to help us protect against. We've talked about it as well in the last session, and it's just a sharp word of caution, because when I first came across this Google Workspace, I was very excited to get started. And now there are several things that you can do where you can launch the MCP service locally and sort of segment it off and make sure it's not connected to important data at first. There are several steps you can take, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to what is in the code. And so personally, what I'm doing is using ChatGPT or Claude to go through elements of this code and do a security review before I fully am ready to dive in and use the Google Workspace MCP server. But what's really nice from Salesforce specifically is that we'll be getting the App Exchange, which is now Agent Exchange, which will now include the trusted and vetted MCP services coming from Salesforce and Salesforce's partners. So that will be really nice to have, and any opportunity we get from OpenAI or Anthropic with Claude to present to us trusted MCP connections and services, that will be really great as well. But for now, remember to stick with the platform hosted MCP services that are made available to us, and heed the word of caution from the OpenAIs and Anthropics of the world to make sure we're using our agents responsibly. And that's where I'll leave it at today. Thanks for joining me on this journey, and I'll catch you on the next one.